welcome to our Git workshop. Our Git session will be covering the basics of Git, and these basics will be helping you in the hackathon. So get ready for a fun session. I will make sure to make the session as fun as possible, and I will also be showing hands-on so that you guys can follow up along with me and do it on your laptop or computer as well. And before starting the session, just a friendly reminder to hydrate yourselves. Okay, guys. So starting off with our session, let's get some base knowledge and wrap our minds around the concept of version control system. A version control system is used to track changes made in the project files. These changes, when they're being made, the version control system logs these changes and maintains records so that they can be tracked and managed over time. Multiple users, like generally when you are working on some project in a company or in your college or for this hackathon, in this hackathon for example, you'll be working in teams. So multiple users will be contributing their part of the code, and they'll be making changes concurrently. So we cannot just wait for one person to finish his changes and then ask another person to make his changes. That would just prolong the development period. So when multiple people make changes to the code, we need a methodology or a system to control all these changes. So version control system is the concept which helps us control all these changes. All these changes need to be in sync for the project or the application to function properly or to make sense. So this version control system allows teams to track changes and compare previous versions with the current versions. And so the version control system we are discussing about right now is Git. So Git is one of the ways of implementing the idea of version control, and here we are using distributed version control system, abbreviated as DVCS. So unlike the centralized version control system, which uses a central server or a central computer which stores all the files and all the details regarding the team collaboration, DVCS can be implemented with the help of any desktop at any part of the world. Like when people work together, it is not necessary in DVCS that they are at the same office or in the same room to work together. They can be at any part on the globe and they can work together and their project can be built. So the failure of the central server does not create any discrepancies in the DVCS, and the operations can also be performed when we are offline. So why are we using Git exactly? So Git is free and open source. That basically means that Git allows the programmers to edit, modify, and reuse the software source code. This gives the programmers an opportunity to improve and modify the source code according to their own needs. And the most important feature of Git is that it provides instant backup. So the data can be instantly backed up and pushed on to the remote repositories. It is very effective and needs very low requirements. It can run on almost any basic machine, does not need any graphical computing capabilities. And the staging area is one of the most striking features of Git. The staging area is the intermediate area where the changes are committed to and are ready to be pushed to the main repository. I will be explaining this later when we come to the Git commands. So now, first of all, let's start off by installing Git. I request everyone to follow along with me so that you can have a hands-on experience and this session will be more interactive and enjoyable. So just Google Git or just follow this link. So just go to Google and just Google Git. So that link is the very first link. So it shouldn't be trouble following. Can I get some acknowledgement in the chat that you guys are following along? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So just go to this page, git-sem.com. This is the official website for Git, and the software is completely free. You can just hit download or download for Windows or choose your appropriate operating system if it's a Mac or if it's a Linux machine. Just download it, and I'll walk you through the installation process using the PPT. So just go to the official website, and the installation is pretty straightforward like any other software. Click on 64 or 32-bit Git for Windows and allow the download to complete. And like, can I get an acknowledgement that people have downloaded the file? Okay. Yeah, just make sure you download the file and do it along with me, so that yeah. Okay, I'll repeat. Yeah, just go open a new tab, just Google Git, and it's the very first site. You won't find any troubles navigating, and just hit download for Windows or any other operating system based on your computer. Just hit download. Yeah, have you guys downloaded the file? Okay, I'll be moving on with the next steps. Yeah, the installation, like any other software, is pretty simple. Like once you download, you just open the setup, allow the Git for Windows program to modify your device by hitting yes. And yeah, these are the licenses for Git. It's under the GNU GPU license, which means it is completely open sourced. And hit next. And for the install location, like you don't really have to change it. Like leave it to be installed in your system's default drive. That's the best place for it to exist. And don't change it unless you have a proper reason to modify it. And just click next. And after that, we'll get a setup page where we select the components. Like it's better to leave it at default, or if any of the boxes are unchecked, then just use this screen as a reference and check the boxes. You need to check Windows Explorer integration, Git LFS, associate.git star, and associate.sh. Just make sure you check all these boxes and then click next. I'll wait for a couple of minutes so that you guys can do this. Just make sure you check all these boxes. And as soon as you check all these boxes, you just click next, and then the process is pretty straightforward. Just keep clicking next. And it's better to leave the settings as default. And like unless we have a proper reason to modify it, it's better not to modify it. And we let Git decide the best branch name. It defaults to master, and we have absolutely no problem with it. Just click next, next. And the path environment, make sure you click the recommended option, Get from the command line and also from third party software. We will be using the command line basically, and the third party software will help us react better and interact better with Git, because it will be providing us a GUI environment which will just make it easier. So just select the recommended option and just click next, and then the next page as well. Leave the choice to be default and just click next. And yeah, even these, just leave it to be default. Don't change anything, and just click next and finish the installation. And this last two windows as well, like leave it at default selection and just click next. And this is the last window of clicking next. So just leave it at default selection and click next. I will wait for confirmation that all of you have installed Git successfully. Just let me know if you followed along. If you have any trouble with anything, if you're facing any difficulty, please use the chat window. Our organizers and mentors are always ready to assist you with this. Guys, can you please text in the chat window if you committed, like if you finished the installation, just text yes. Okay, Rahul, I'll wait for a couple of seconds. Please finish the installation so that you can have hands-on experience. Yeah, okay, Rahul. Thank you. We'll be moving on with the next steps now. Yeah, we'll be primarily be using the Git bash terminal to react with Git. Like go to start, check Git bash. You'll find the app. We'll be primarily be using this app. Just open it and keep it minimized. So let us now discuss about the stages in Git. So a file basically goes through three stages in Git. A file is either in an unmodified stage or a modified stage or in the staged stage, and then the file is going to be committed. So when you create any file in any directory, it is basically in the untracked stage. So when you initialize Git in that folder, like I'll tell you how to initialize Git, so just try to understand the theory around it. So when you initialize Git in that particular folder, your files start being tracked by Git. So now they will enter the unmodified stage because you haven't like made any changes. And like as this arrow shows here, when you make any change, when you edit the file moves from unmodified stage to modified stage. And once you think that this is the change you want to make and you're fine, you got no errors in your code, or like that is the change you want to make, you will be staging your file into the intermediate area which we spoke about previously, and from there the file will be ready to be pushed. And you can also remove your file from being tracked. Like if you don't want a particular file to be uploaded into your repository, you can just remove the file and it will go back to being untracked, and Git won't track your file anymore. And there's one more thing. Once you commit your file, it reaches the staged, the intermediate layer we were talking about. It comes back to the unmodified stage again, because all the changes you made until now have been recorded by Git, and it has a track of all the changes. So now it starts afresh. It just starts tracking your changes afresh, and all the changes you made until now have been recorded by Git. So just try to wrap your minds around it, and if you have any difficulty, just please ask in the chat window so that one of us can respond to you. And the next step will be configuring your Git. Just follow these commands uh, in the Git bash terminal, which we opened a couple of minutes ago. Just type git config double hyphen global space user.name and give your username. And then set up your email ID, git config double hyphen global user.email and your mail ID. And it should prompt you for the password. Just enter your GitHub password, and this credentials should be of your GitHub username and your GitHub mail ID. And this third command is nothing but to check your Git settings. This is not needed as of now. Just try to log in to your GitHub via your Git terminal. Give me an acknowledgement once you're done with it. Yeah, so guys, I assume you logged in to your GitHub accounts using your credentials. Like if you're facing any difficulties, please reach out to us in the chat window. Yeah, okay, I'll share the slide for for 1 minute, 1 more minute. Yeah, okay, guys. Now we'll be moving on with the next steps. Like after installing it, the process is pretty straightforward and simple. I'll be showing that to you, and you can follow me hands-on as well. These are all the commands which we'll be covering in this session, and I'll be dealing with each command in detail when the slide comes up. So this is like just an overview of all the commands we'll be dealing with. So yeah, let me just show you hands-on. And this is the quick setup guide given to us by GitHub themselves. So now I'll be showing you how you'll create a repository and link it on from your local folder to your repository uh, on GitHub. So just navigate to GitHub, and this is the GitHub homepage, and just click the new repository button here, and let's just say Git session. Yeah. Now, this is the description of your repository is optional, and you can choose your repository to either be public or private. And you choose it to be public when you want the source code to be accessible by everyone, and you make it private when you do not want the source code to be accessible to everyone, but only your teammates or only restricted access. So for this hackathon, you'll be basically using the private. So you can leave all this and you can just hit create repository. And yeah, and once you create the repository, Git themselves gives you a quick setup guide, which is also shown here in the PPT. And so yeah, this is the quick setup guide. So now let's go create a local repository here. Let me just create a folder saying Git session. Yep. So let me just open this folder, and so now this will be our local repository, and this is our global repository on GitHub. So now we'll be seeing how to link it. So GitHub basically provides us with all the commands which we need to execute on the command line if we are creating a new repository or pushing to an existing repository. Since we just created this repository a couple of seconds ago, this is a new repository. And if you are pushing to a repository which already exists, then you should be using these commands. And the steps to be followed is just the same. So you will be basically copying all these commands. Use the copy button right here, or you can manually copy all the commands. Use the copy button. Then you can basically do two things here. You can just right click and go to show more options, and you should be seeing git bash here options. Due to my version of Windows, it's not being shown, but you can do it in terminal as well. If you uh, see the option git bash here, you are free to use it. Since I do not see it, I'll do it on the terminal. And I also recommend you guys to use the terminal because terminals can be embedded in your code editors like Visual Studio, Atom, etc. So it will be easier for you to use Git commands on the terminal command line as well. So I recommend you guys also to use the terminal or the Windows PowerShell. And then once you have copied all these commands, just come to your terminal and right click. And right click automatically indicates paste here, and just say paste anyway, it's fine. And now I'll be explaining each command one by one what it does exactly, and then we'll hit enter, which will connect our local repository, this git session folder, to the global repository which is on our GitHub. So okay, the first command is the echo git session onto readme. This is just a simple command which just inscribes this string into a file called readme.md. It is a markdown file, and it basically explains or gives a small description about what our repository is about. And next, the git init command. The git init command is used to initialize the local repository in your folder. Yeah, you can also see the comment right here, and it initializes a empty git repository in this path. And git add readme.md is like we've inscribed the file here, right? We are just adding this file into the git repository. We are adding this so that it can be tracked by git. And I'll be showing this in the PPT as well after this, so please don't worry. And then the next commit is the uh, git commit command, and I'll be explaining the syntax as well. So now just try to wrap your minds around this. So after the git commit command, the files will be committed and they'll go to the staging area. And after that, git here is just creating a branch called main, and then we are connecting our git local repository to the GitHub global repository using this command git remote add origin, and this is the link to our GitHub. And then once all these commands are done, we'll be pushing our changes to it. So let me just click enter. Yeah, okay, I'll slow down. Okay, yeah, I'll just slow down, guys. Please follow along. Just you just have to copy all these commands which are under the create a new repository on the command line, and then just paste them onto your terminal or git bash. I recommend you to use the terminal because you can embed the terminal into your code editors, and it will be useful to you guys in the future. So that's the only reason I recommend using the terminal. So just copy paste these commands. I'll wait for like 30 seconds. Yeah, so can I, okay, I'll repeat the process. So I'll repeat the process. So you basically go to your GitHub homepage, and then you hit this button, which creates a new repository for you. Just give a repository name here. It can be anything. And this public or private is the accessibility setting, which lets you make the repository be available to everyone on the internet, or only your teammates or your colleagues and restricted access. And then just hit create repository once you are done selecting your options. I've already created a repository, and once you hit create repository, you'll be landing on the screen where GitHub themselves give you a quick setup guide where they give a set of commands which are to be executed on your Git terminal once you create a new repository or push to an existing repository. Since we here created a new repository, we'll be using this set of commands. You can just use this copy button right here, or manually copy all these commands, and then go to your folder where you want to initialize your project, just right click and then you can go to show more options. And due to the version of my Windows here, it is not showing git bash here, but it should be showing you git bash here. And even if it doesn't show git bash here, it's not a problem. You can always run git commands on your terminal. So just click open in terminal, which will open your PowerShell. And once your PowerShell is open, just right click and hit paste anyways, which will copy all these commands. I just copied all these commands from here to here. That's about it. And then uh, about explaining each command, I will deal with explaining each commands again. So that's not a problem as of now. So just give me a go once you are
Gopal,
done with this.
sorry for interrupting. There's someone who's asking you to repeat something. Could you just go through the chat once?
Yeah, okay. Okay, Rahul, what is the purpose of you in push command? Fine. Yeah, the U basically it it tells you that you are trying to push to the origin branch of sorry, the you're basically changing the branch you're pushing to main. Like it's given by GitHub themselves, so we just follow their commands. Yeah, so like once you all are done, just give me a go so that I can hit enter and show you through the next process of this. Yep, Kandla Sai Kiran, yeah, I've repeated the process. So are you clear with it now? Just give me a go. Yeah, okay. How to enter username and password? You'll just be running these commands on your Git to configure your Git. So the git config double hyphen global space user.name space your username, and then your email using a similar command where the only difference is user.email and space then your mail ID. And then it will be prompting you for your password. Please enter your GitHub password. Yeah, and you should be using your GitHub credentials here. So if you do not have an account, it might show some errors. So make sure you create a GitHub account before logging in. So guys, just please give me yes or a done text in the chat so that I can move on. I, I don't want to hold you guys back for long. I know you must be planning to prepare for your hackathon. So just give me a go. Yeah, okay. So let me just hit enter on my terminal now, which will execute all these commands and successfully connect our local repository, which is the Git session folder, to our global repository, which is our Git session repository on GitHub. How to get Git commands on site? So yeah, you basically just I'll just walk you through it again. You just go to your GitHub, log into your GitHub, go to the GitHub homepage, and then just hit new, which will take you to the page where you can create a new repository. Just give the name of your repository, whatever you want to name your repository, and then choose the settings appropriately. The accessibility settings, the description is optional, and then just you can leave these for now, and then just hit create repository. And once you hit create repository, you'll be automatically redirected to a page which will give you the git commands, the quick setup guide. Is it clear now, Kartikeya? Just give me a go once it's clear. Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, so now I'll be hitting enter on my terminal, which will run all these commands. Yep, since we did not find any errors, which means all the commands have been run successfully. And after running all these commands, just refresh, and then you should find a .git folder. And if you do not find it, that's probably because you did not enable view hidden folders and files. And like we do not have anything to do with this folder, we should not be doing anything with this folder. It is just for your understanding purposes. So even if you do not see it, it's absolutely fine. So, but if you want to see it, just enable view hidden files and folders. This .git folder is basically the GitHub or Git folder, which shows, which records all your activities on your repository to track your changes and logs all your activities so that they can control the versions. And we should not absolutely be messing with this folder. We should not disturb the folder or any file inside that folder. We'll be dealing only with files outside the folder. So once we're done with that, just refresh your GitHub repository. So yeah, our first commit was 11 minutes ago. Like I've copy pasted this commands long ago, right? So our first commit was 11 minutes ago, and it's just this file which is git session, which can be seen right here, git hyphen session, which has been inscribed into the readme file. And this is the readme file which is displayed on your repository, and it just gives you a small insight or like a small description about your repository. It just describes your repository. So now we'll be moving on with the next steps. The git commands. The git init command now. The git init command is used to initialize a new git repository on your existing folder. So it creates and it converts the existing unversioned project into a git repository. Or it can also be used to initialize a new empty repository. You can use this command on an empty folder or a folder which already contains files. It just converts your folder from an unversioned project to a version project, and you basically enable version control on your project. So as I already mentioned, executing git init creates a .git subdirectory in the current working directory, which contains all necessary git metadata for the new repository. And we should not be absolutely messing with this folder because it contains important information uh, which is used by git. And the next command is git clone. Like we did not use this command in this particular tutorial, but this might be useful to you if you want to contribute towards open source. So when you wish to contribute towards open source, first you must copy an existing repository because you cannot directly make changes in someone else's repository. So you just copy an existing repository into your local repository. For that, you must click the fork button on the repo of an existing repository on GitHub. I'll just show you the button on a repo, just in case you're interested in forking any repository and contributing towards open source. So let's just check for any Hacktober repository. Let's go with the first repository. And yeah, this right here is the fork button. And just in case, if you are interested in contributing towards any open source project, or if you're like, if your friend asks you for help with his or her project, you can just go to his or her repository and then just hit fork. Fork lets you create a branch of all the code which exists in this repository, and you can edit that, make changes to that code, make changes to files. Like you can basically create your own version of that project, and then if you think it is good enough to be published towards open source, then you can generate a pull request and then merge it. Well, I'll be explaining you that later. Don't worry about that right now. And then starting a repository is just when you like, it's like subscribing to a YouTube channel. So when you like a YouTube channel, you subscribe to it. So in GitHub, when you like some repository, you think this code is useful to you, or you just like it for some reason, you just start it, and it will be saved to your starred repositories, and then you can access them anytime you want. Instead of like searching for them, you can just go to your starred repositories and just access them. So now let's get back to our git session repository. And now moving on with the next commands. I'll explain you the commands once, and once we're done, I'll show you the hands-on, and you guys can do it along with me as well. The next command is the git status command. The git status command is used when you want to know the status or the working condition of all the files which are in your repository. So let me just show it to you so that you understand it better. Let me just create a new text document here. Let's just name it git session. Okay. Yeah, I hope you got all of you guys are following me. Let's just name this document git session. And for the contents of this document, let's just say COSC Hacktober test. Yep. So let's just save that file and close it. So now what we've basically done is we've created a new .txt file, and we've basically just inserted a single line of text here. It can be code, it can be text, it can be anything. And once we've done that, now let us use the git status command. I hope you guys are following along with me so that you can understand this better. I hope you guys are following along. So just hit git space status, and then just hit enter. So now we see that your branch is up to date with origin main, which means our branch is in sync with our global repository right here. But there is an untracked file which is git session.txt. So now we want to track this file. We want Git to track this file and mm, check for changes in this file, and when any change is being done and when we commit and push it, we want it to reflect in this global repository right here. So what we do to do that, what command we use to do that is git add file name. This is the command which we'll be using to add any files to the git track control or version control. So let me just show you how to do that. It's very simple. Just git space add file name. You can add the file name, and if it gives you an error, just make sure that you encase the file name in quotes. But there's an easier way to work around this, which most of us will be using. I'll show that to you as well. So if you feel that all the files in your repository must be tracked by Git and all the files must be in sync with your global repository on GitHub, you just say git add dot, git space add space dot. So now this command basically it initializes all the files in your repository to be tracked by Git. And once you type this command onto your terminal, just hit enter. And since we've seen no errors, it means that the files are being tracked. Can you please repeat from creating a repository? Okay, I guess we are recording this meeting and it will be shared to you. Like we are far from creating a repository, and I guess we'll be wasting time of other people. So I'll continue for now. You can reach out to me or any other organizers. We'll give you the link or we'll try to help you out, Janavi. So please just try to continue along with me from now. And if you have any issues, just please contact us. Feel free to contact us. We'll try our level best to help you. So let me just continue from here. So you might ask me what is the proof that that file is being tracked. So we'll use our very own git status command again. Just type git space status and hit enter. So now the file is being shown in green color, right? Changes to be committed, which means this file has been entered into the tracking file of git. So git is now tracking this file. It's tracking all the changes in this file. So now whenever you make any change in this file, git will be tracking it, and once you commit it, it will be staged, and from there you can push it to the global repository on your GitHub. So if you want any file to be unstaged from the committed thing, you can do that as well, and the commit and the command for that is right here. You use that command to unstage. So let's just unstage this file for once, and then I'll stage it again and show you how it works. So just copy paste that command as usual, or just type it by looking at it, and it's pretty simple, and use dot for all the files or file name if you want to unstage a specific file. So once you run this command, it should give no errors, which means it has run perfectly. Now let's just check git status again. So now it's shown in red color again, which means the file is now not being tracked by Git since we unstaged it. Like, you guys get it right? We unstaged the file, so now it is no longer being tracked by Git. Just just give me a go if you are uh, following along. Please ask if you've been facing any difficulty anywhere. Yeah, guys, just text yes or done or something, uh, just so that I know that you followed along until now. Okay, thank you, Janardhan. Thank you very much. So we'll restage our file again. We'll restage our file again so that we can move further. So just you can use the upper and lower arrows to just repeat any commands. You need not type them again. Use your upper arrow and you'll go to your previous command. So let me just use git add dot again so that we restage that file, and let me just type in git status again just to make sure that our file is staged. And the next step in our thing is the git commit command. This command helps us to stage our change. Like once we are finished with all our changes, we've checked the code, we've double checked it, it's running absolutely fine. This is exactly what we want. So now we want to commit this change. So we use this to push this code onto the committed intermediate layer, which we spoke about in the very start of this presentation. So just use the command git commit -m, and in quotes you have to give your commit message. I'll explain that to you. And please make sure that you give this -m and this string, because if you do not give that, it will open your default editor uh, to ask you for the message, and it'll become a long process. So you can just skip all that, and you can do that via your command line as well. The command line is a very powerful tool to interact with any application. So just make sure you type the command correctly: git space commit space -m space, then double quotes. Then in that string, you'll just give the message which you want to be reflected on your particular commit, so that your teammates who are like in a different time zone, so like you might finish your work and then you might sign off from your work, and they'll be signing in later. And once they sign in, they need to understand like until where you finish the job, or what changes you made to the file, or what changes you or what kind of files you've created, or what files you've deleted. So he or she needs to understand what you've exactly done. So that is exactly why this commit message comes to play here. So let's just say added a text file as our commit message here. And once our commit message and the command is ready, we are ready to commit our change. So let's just hit enter over here. Make sure you're following along. If you are not following along, just let me know. Yep, and we see no errors, which means the file has been staged and it is ready to be pushed to our repository now. You can just use git status again if you wish to, which shows no files, because it says nothing to commit and the working tree is clean. The working tree is basically all the tree which shows all the files which have been modified, which are unmodified, which are tracked, which are not tracked, and other stuff like that. So that's the working tree. And when you run the commit command, your file is basically pushed onto that intermediate layer, or the stage, from where it is pushed to the global repository. So now once you committed a file, like I told you already in this PPT previously, in this image, once you committed a file, it comes back to unmodified, because Git now has recorded all your changes, and now it views that file as a completely new file. This doesn't mean that you lost the contents of your file or anything. It just means that Git now has a version of your file recorded on their side already, and you can continue working. And if you make any small error or anything like that in the later parts, you can just revert back to this version very easily, and that shouldn't be a problem. And after this, there's also another variation of the git commit, uh, which is the -am variation, which lets you add and commit at the same time. But I would recommend using the git add and git commit -m separately, because it just gives you more control and you have an idea of what you're doing. And after that, we'll be using the git push command, which will probably be the final command of pushing your project onto the repository. So just type git space push, and then once you're ready, you're all set, just hit enter. Once you hit enter, it can take a couple of seconds to push, and we get no errors. All the files have been pushed successfully. And once you get the prompt that all the files have been pushed successfully, you can just come to your global repository and refresh. And so now we see that our git session txt is reflected in our GitHub global repository. And now your friend can just come visit this repository and see all the changes you made. And our message, which we put here saying added a text file, is reflected here. So he or she, when they come here, they see, okay, you have added a text file, and they understand, and they can start right off, jump right back into work and continue working. That is the last command. And the git log command, as the name suggests, this command shows commit logs. It shows all the logs of all the commits you made. So yeah, you can see it right here. It shows my email ID and my name, and it shows all the commits I made. It is just a simple command in case you want to track the changes manually. So let me explain and help you guys wrap your mind around the concept of branches in Git. A branch is basically a movable pointer. It's nothing but a movable pointer. So when the team lead or your boss at work initializes the repository, he or she initializes the master branch, which is the main branch, which is being shown in green color circles here. And he or she will give you the repository and ask you to work on it. And you most probably won't be advised to work on the main branch, because the main branch is always directly related to the supply of the application. Like this app, this master branch application is being deployed, so you always want this to be bug free, error free. So you work on your separate branches. So you branch out from your main branch, you do all the changes you wish to do, and then you create a pull request to the main branch. And once your boss or your team lead approves of your changes, once he or she thinks they are correct and they can be implemented into the app, they merge your branch, and the branch just gets merged with your main branch, and your app gets deployed. That's about branches in Git. And there are a few commands for branching. You can just take a screenshot of this, like these are available on the internet as well. But if you wish, you can just take a screenshot of this. I'll be telling you what each branch command does. So the first command, git branch space branch name. This is used to create a new branch with the name which you give right here in the place of branch name. This is the git branch command. And the second is the git branch -a, which is used to list all the existing branches. Like if you try running this command right now in the hands-on experience we've been going through, it will not show anything, because like we do not have any branches. We've been working on the master or the main branch itself. This shows all the existing branches. And once you want to switch to your own branch, or you want to work on somebody else's branch, you can always do that. You can just use this command, git checkout branch name. And once you specify that branch name, it switches you to that branch. And if you wish to delete a particular branch, there are two ways of deleting a branch. So once the capital D variation and once the small d variation. So the git branch capital D branch name is used to delete a particular branch. This is just straightforward, the normal delete. And this small d variation is git branch -d branch name, which is used to delete a branch after merge. Like for example, you created this branch, you made the changes, you got the approval from your team lead or your boss, and once you merge the changes successfully into the master branch, you no longer want this branch to exist, it's redundant. So once you want to delete that branch after merging, you can use the small d variation, which will allow you to delete the branch after merging. And the git checkout -d branch name, this is a command which is used to create and check out to a new branch simultaneously. It basically combines the power of the get branch command and the get checkout branch name command into the same command. The get checkout -d branch name command can be used instead of using these both commands, branch and checkout. It creates the branch of the specified branch name and also moves your control to that branch so that you can just start working in that branch. So with that, guys, we've come to an end of this presentation.